In this video I'm digging out my minibike or moped, I make a pretty list, I inflate a tire, put a thingy around another thingy, and I look at some fuel. And some more fuel. What's up everybody? Welcome back to Wrench at Home. Before we begin, a short reminder. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out a lot. Thanks! Today I'm working on my minibike or moped, a 50cc AGM Caferacer Luxury from 2017. From the moment I bought my Squarebody truck, you know, this one, I kind of totally neglected this bike and it has been sitting in my garage collecting dust. It hasn't moved in almost 2 years, and because summer is here and the weather is getting better, I want to start riding it again. Also, how would you guys label this thing? Moped, minibike, something else? Let me know in the comments. Here in the Netherlands the rules are all pretty strict. You can ride these 50cc bikes or scooters as soon as you turn 16, which makes them popular for commuting school kids, but you have to get a special driving license for it. As soon as you pass for your car driving exam when you're age 17 or older, you automatically get the license for these small bikes included. If you want to drive a full-size motorcycle, you have to get a separate driving license for those as well. In terms of fuel economy, this thing is great. I can drive 400 kilometers, that's about 250 miles, on one tank of petrol, which holds around 12 liters. That's 3.2 gallons. Try to beat that in an old V8 truck. I'm going to use my air compressor to clean up the dust and air up the tires, but before I do anything, I'm going to make a roadkill style to-do list on an old piece of cardboard. This list is a nice starting point, but as it so often happens, there will be more items added to it while I'm making progress. The bike is still in great condition, but it's very dusty because of the time it has been sitting in my garage. And the tires don't have much air in them anymore. I start with blowing off all the loose dust with compressed air. Then it's time for the first item on the list, putting some air back in the tires. I changed out my compressed air gun with a pressure gauge and removed the valve caps. For each tire I add compressed air until my pressure gauge reads around 2.5 bars, which is around 35 psi. Since the back tire generally holds more weight, you could add a bit more pressure there. Now is also a good time to check your tires for obvious damages and to make sure there isn't any dry rot or sidewall cracking, indicating that the tires are getting old. Alright, that's the first task done already. Let's hope everything goes this smooth. Spoiler alert. It doesn't. Next up is the air intake. I want to check the condition of the air intake filter unit. The lid on the air filter housing is only held on by one screw, which makes it very easy to remove. It looks to be in okay shape, as I already expected. Since the bike is only 5 years old and doesn't have that many miles on it, I hope blowing the dust out of the filter with compressed air will suffice for now. Here you can see me breathing through the filter unit to make sure there's enough airflow. Tastes like ass. Gas. Putting the filter back in its housing on your own is a bit finicky, so I call in the help of an extra pair of hands. When everything is back together, I can cross off another item on the list. Now I want to check the fluid levels, mainly for the front and rear brakes, and of course the engine oil. To get a good reading on the fluid levels, the bike has to be level. Since this one doesn't have a center stand, I'm putting it up next to a wall with some wooden blocks underneath the kickstand so the bike stays in position. The front brake fluid seems alright. I could add a little bit more. For the rear brakes and engine oil side glasses, I, of course, have to be on the other side of the bike, so time for a quick turnaround. The fluid level for the rear brake looks great, right at the upper mark. The engine oil, however, is pretty much empty. Whoops. The oil level should be sitting somewhere around the middle of the glass. I look at the oil dipstick, and after a fresh dip there's hardly any fluid on it. That's definitely going to need some more oil. This bike uses a 10W40 synthetic oil suitable for a wet clutch. The clutch is referred to as wet because it's literally bathed in engine oil. I also need some DOT4 braking fluid, and since I'm ordering parts anyway, I will also be replacing the spark plug, the air intake filter unit and the fuel filter while I'm at it. Next up is a quick check of all the electrical components. I check if the main dash boots up, the headlight high and low beams. I check my front turn indicator lights. I check the rear light, the rear brake light, and of course the rear turn signal lights as well. And of course the horn. It seems like everything is working just fine. Another item to cross off the list. As many of you know, gasoline can start to go bad in as little as 3 months because some of the components of gasoline evaporate over time. Your engine will probably run on the old fuel, but it can cause issues like engine knocking, sputtering and clogged injectors. Because this bike has been sitting for almost 2 years, I open up the tank to take a look at the old fuel, so I can find out if I need to drain it out or not. The gasoline smells normal and looks absolutely clear with no dirt or residue on the bottom of the tank.
Ja, vet je nou. Clean.
I'm no scientist, but to me that sounds like it will be fine. I'm still going to replace the fuel filter anyway, so any leftover dirt or grime will hopefully be caught by that. Next item on the list is brake pads. This bike is the luxury model, which means it has a few upgrades compared to the base model, like an upgraded upside down front fork, bigger wheels and brake discs on both front and rear. I'm primarily looking at the material that's left on the brake pads, which squeeze the discs when you're trying to slow down. In my case, the brake pads are far from worn out. There is still a lot of material on all of the pads. You can also easily see the wear indicators, which are the little slots cut into the pad material. If these slots are barely visible or not visible at all, it's time for new pads. So I don't need to replace mine for now. Getting to a stop is one of the most important things when you are in or on a moving vehicle. You can have all the brake fluid you want, but if your pads are finished, chances are you're not stopping and you're ruining your brake discs. I checked the condition of the fuel in the tank, but there should also be some fuel left standing in the carburetor bowl. So I'll check and clean that as well. The bowl is held on by 2 screws, one on each side. And there's a rubber gasket in between the carburetor and the bowl. The carburetor is a device that mixes air and fuel before it heads into your engine for combustion. You won't find these on modern cars anymore, but a lot of engines on, for instance, lawnmowers and bikes still have them. After carefully removing the bowl, I empty the old fuel in a rag and give everything a good clean. A tip I saw in another YouTube video was to wrap a rag around a small screwdriver so you can get into every nook and cranny. The bowl is nice and clean, ready to go back on the bike. The rubber gasket looks fine, so I reinstall it on the bowl and screw everything back on the carburetor.
Ja.
Now that that's all back together, I finished all the small jobs on my list. I didn't want this video to get too long, so join me next week when I install all the new parts I ordered, take the bike for a quick test drive, and try to cross off the remaining items on my to-do list. If you liked today's video, please leave a thumbs up and maybe subscribe to the channel. Take care everybody, bye!